All right, today is May 14th, and that is a really special day in the Wyoming 2020 election because this is the day that candidate filing opens for the first time, and we've got about a 2-week window to do our filing in. And 11 months ago today, in fact, like right at this time, I was standing in front of a group of people in Washington Park in Albany County declaring my candidacy for US Senate. And the last 11 months have been amazing, and we've been slowly and steadily growing this campaign. And so we arrived today at one of our milestones, which is being able to actually file. And so that's what we're going to do today is I'm going to file for office. And we wanted to bring you along for the ride, partly because one of the purposes of this campaign has been really trying to demystify this whole big running for office thing. And while some people get intimidated by the public speaking part or, the getting on the phone part and raising money part, some people get intimidated by the paperwork part. And so we thought it might be kind of fun to actually do this with you today. So that's what we're going to do. And when I went on the Secretary of State's website this morning, there was a message up that they were having some glitch with the online paperwork part. And so I went ahead and actually printed out the paperwork. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of like what that paperwork looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and screen share, which is not the normal thing that I do in our sessions, but we wanted to share this with you. And so I wanted to show people what this paperwork actually is like, and it's really not that bad. This is my cat, Kyra, who, because we're all still sheltering in place, is very interested in what we're doing here. So why am I? There we go. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go back more slides here. Yeah, so this is what the paperwork looks like when you download the paperwork or they send you the paperwork over email. This is what you're going to get. There's 2 pages to it. There's a page that's basically information about running for office and filing to run, and then there is just 1 page of actual paperwork itself. And so looking at it a little more closely, this page goes through the qualifications for holding office and the filing period and the filing fee. And so we are here on March 14th, the opening day of filing. And this is an interesting thing to look at, what the qualifications for holding office are. And I've just got the, oh, well, this is interesting as well. So so it only costs $200 to file in Wyoming, and you don't have to do signature gathering if you're running under one of the 2 major parties as a Democrat or a Republican. This is incredibly expensive. So I have friends who are candidates all over the country, and a number of them have actually not made the primary ballot because they weren't able to raise the thousands of dollars that it takes in their state, or they weren't able to gather the signatures because, of course, we've been in quarantine and isolation for a long time now, for a number of weeks, and that really interfered with a number of people getting on ballots in other states. But we're very fortunate in Wyoming that it's a very simple process to file. And then it's just a $200 fee, even for federal and statewide offices. State legislature, it's only $25. The actual qualifications for running are interesting. So I'm running for US Senate, and so I must be at least 30 years old, check. A US citizen for 9 years, check. And an inhabitant of the state in which he shall be chosen. U.S. House of Representatives is a little bit less. It's 25 years old and 7 years. Governor is 30 years old, U.S. citizen, qualified elector, and resided in the state for 5 years. Now, notice that that is not part of what you need to be able to run for U.S. Senate or U.S. House. You don't actually need to have lived in the state that you're in for a very long time at all, or at all. I mean, you can literally move there and file the next day. So somebody may have moved to Wyoming yesterday and be filing today to be running for one of these offices. And this is how you get literal carpetbaggers and people whose primary residence is not in Wyoming. And so this definitely sometimes happens, and I think it's a horrible practice. Okay, So this is what that paperwork looks like, and we'll go through it on the electronic version so you'll get a chance to see these questions. But it's basically like, where do you live, how old are you, and what are you running for is the top half. And then the bottom half is going to ask you for contact information for your campaign, your signature. And then this section is actually in some ways the most interesting section on the paperwork. And it's an interesting example of how Wyoming is simultaneously really together in some ways and really not getting it in other ways. So one of the things is that, you know, even though my legal name is Yana Ludwig, I can put Yana Ludwig on the ballot because that's what people know me by. So you can put Scooter Bob on here if that's your, you know, what people know you by. It doesn't actually have to be your legal name. So that's cool, and it's especially cool for people in the trans community who might not want to be putting their dead names on their paperwork. However, the gender question is where it's really frustratingly behind the times. It's like there's only these two options. And then the third thing down here is making ballots accessible to people who have certain kinds of disabilities. And so you have to give this phonetic version of your name in order to be able to register to run. So that's what the paperwork looks like when you get the paperwork. Now I wanted to show you this just because the turnaround time was amazing. So I messaged or sent an email to the Secretary of State's office 2 days ago to just ask the question about like, hey, how are we doing that in terms of like isolation practices? I emailed them at 11:13. Ross Breedlove from the Secretary of State's office got back to me in 28 minutes with an answer. And so the Secretary of State's office is super on it with this stuff currently, and I was really happy to see that. And so that's where you go to get the information that you need to file to run. You're going to go to, this is sos.wyo.gov, and here on the main page, you will be able to find information that you need. And so there's a number of ways to get to this information, and the Secretary of State's website is actually like super intuitive and easy to navigate. So you can go to forms, and that will take you to a whole bunch of different forms. And if you scroll down, you can get to the elections forms. You can also go up here to the elections tab and go to candidate information. And this is regardless of what office you're running for. And then go to filing for office here. And then you can see there's a bunch of different categories here for things that you actually file with the Secretary of State's office, and even some things that you don't, but you can get the forms here, and then you actually file with the county. And so if you were to go here, nomination by party primary, this is where you would get the form that I was just looking at. And so that's the form if you're running as a Democrat or Republican. And then if you are not, you're going to go here. If you're running as an independent, then you want to go in through forms and elections, and that'll get you to where you go for running as an independent. So if you do nomination by party primary, here is that same piece of paperwork that I was just showing you, and you can fill it out electronically here. You can type right in this form. You're still going to need to sign it, so you're still going to need to like print it, sign it, scan it, and send it in, or take it in, but don't do that right now. Go ahead and just send it in and then call in to pay the fee. So that's the best way to do it right now. We are going to go ahead and click here to do the application. And so it's got some information here. Filing fee is required. I'm going to turn off the screen share when it gets to that part of the process. But you'll notice it says here that it needs to be filled out prior to 5 p.m. Mountain Time on the last day of the applicable filing period. So you've got about 2 weeks. If you're still on the fence about running for office, you've got 2 weeks to make that decision for one of these statewide offices. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling this out. So major party candidate, because I am running as a Democrat. Here's those qualifications again. They're just giving it to you one more time. Make sure that you're really qualified to run. Notice that you can run for being a state rep if you're 21. And so, you know, young folks, you can actually get in on this. You don't have to wait until you're 30 to be able to run for office. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do party affiliation. I'm running as a Democrat, and then the election is the 2020 primary, and I am running for United States Senate. I'm actually a little bit nervous. I never get nervous about these sections, but I'm sort of like that excited, nervous a little bit today doing this. Okay, and so my first name legally is Yana. Middle name, Catherine Ludwig. Okay, don't have a suffix. Date of birth, February 6th, 1970. So I definitely qualify as being 30 years old. Here's that irritating question that does not have enough choices. It does have the choice I need, but it doesn't have the choice that a lot of people would need. Phonetic name, and so here's where I'm going to do the Yana Ludwig. I'm kind of glad that my family doesn't pronounce it Ludwig, because then I'd have to write Lud on state paperwork, and that seems kind of cheeseball. And so the ballot name that I want is Yana Ludwig. Campaign telephone number. So this is the number that is going to be published. Whoops, what did that do? Try that again. So if you want to call my campaign, 307-316-4662. And that number goes to Dana Perderman, who is my campaign manager. So you can catch Dana there. So the email for the campaign, Yana for the number 4, YO, at gmail.com. And then they're just going to have me confirm that, Yana for YO at gmail.com. And our website, Yana for YO.com. Great, so that is the most important batch of like information stuff. And so I'm just going to double check here. They're very clear up here that you need to make sure that it's case sensitive. And so if I want to make sure that I'm really putting what I want on the ballot in here. And so I do indeed want Yana Ludwig, YANA LUDWIG. Got my phonetic spelling in there. Okay, great. So that's the biggest part of this form that we just did. All right. Okay, so my residential address is not 911 standard. No, that's not true. So 22. So I'm going to go ahead and put my address in here. Redirection. Okay. Oh, house number. Whoops. Okay, it's crabbing at me. It will stop you from doing silly things like that, apparently. 2252, and then street name. I got this far, and then I couldn't like not fill it out and get more information. So this part I haven't actually walked myself through. YLN, there we go, lane. Post direction, we don't have one of those. City, got every city in Wyoming in here. Whoops, go back up to Laramie. Like I say, this is either like the most fascinating thing that I'm doing or the most completely boring, and I'm assuming you're not watching if this stuff bores the heck out of you, because I'm literally just filling out paperwork here. So residential address is the same as my mailing address. That is correct. Okay. District and precinct number get generated automatically by this thing. You don't have to put that in. All right. Signature. Here's in the top of this page. All right. So Yana, Catherine, Ludwig. Whoops. Let's actually not type so fast. I swear or affirm that the foregoing information is true and correct, and I declare under penalty of perjury that I am the person named and hereby request that my name be printed upon the official ballot at the next primary election as a candidate for office. I further declare that if nominated and elected, I will qualify for office. There we go. I am going to affirm that and read the warning. Any person who knowingly makes a false statement or misrepresentation of the information on this filing may be subject to a fine or imprisonment. Got it. I'm willing to take the risk. Okay, so here we go. So I'm reviewing and signing. Okay. Helpful information. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to start the payment process. Are you sure you want to continue? Once you start the process, you cannot make changes to your application. Okay, I think we got it. All right. And so I'm going to stop screen sharing at this point so that Dana doesn't like freak out, because I don't want our credit card information from the campaign being all over the place. So I'm going to stop sharing and then continue on filling this out. So you got to make sure you got your card queued up. So this form is only open for 30 minutes when you go to use it. So keep that in mind and make sure you have all your information gathered before you start. And all right, and again, it costs $200 to file to run for United States Senate. All right, and so literally I'm just going to get a little bit boring here for a second while I go ahead. I'm going to let all that stuff autofill. All right. And it is processing our payments right now. Okay, great. So I have just hit the send button, and that means that we have now finished filling out that official paperwork. And I want to go back to screen sharing for just a second and show you something that's kind of cool that you will be able to access, which is that there is a roster of candidates that is available. So this is on sos.wyo.gov again, and this is the primary election candidate roster. There's nobody in here yet because this is the first day of filing, but you can check this at the end of each day, and we're going to check today at 5 o'clock. I'm going to go over here and just make sure that we did all of that right and that we are indeed filed to run and to get on the primary ballot. You can also possibly find one on your county website. So this is my county, Albany County, Wyoming. They also have a list of candidates filed for 2020. So that is it. Like, that really wasn't hard at all. And so I really want to encourage folks, if you've been thinking about running for office and if this part of the process has been at all intimidating, like, please just jump in there and do it. Like, we really need a lot of good people to be running and moving it toward us having more progressive politics in Wyoming and in the United States so that people's real needs are better cared for than they are right now. And so I really encourage other folks to hop in there and go ahead and file and run for office. It's that simple. Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.